Hello and welcome to this phone call catch-up with the Gaffer. How are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Luke. Good to catch up. We've not had a chat like this for a while.
That's not been until pre-season. Obviously, looking back at the season so far, like going right back to the start, it was a perfect start with that win over Barnet.
It was, it was exciting. It's always nice to have a game early doors, or an opener, I should say, against one of the title favourites at the time. Out and out title favourites, really. And also at home, nothing better than starting the season on your own turf in front of your own fans. So it was good. There were challenges. The week and a half running up to the game, we lost players. Harvey Sutcliffe, who'd pretty much been an ever-present throughout pre-season. We had obviously the likes of Joe Cummins, Ryan Galvin, Flo Hottie missing. Kane, who was still with us at the time but unavailable through injury. Max Wright, I think, was not available. So it was tough because we'd expected a few of those to be back, and if you remember, it led to a sort of last minute change of shape, really, so we could put a team out that we felt would be able to play in such a way as to beat Barnet, and thankfully we did. We endured a bit of a barrage second half and what have you, but I thought all in all we were good for the win.
Yeah, absolutely. The performance was certainly there, and a result that probably no one beforehand expected us to get.
No, and I think, like I say, in the run-up, you pre-season, you should never really gauge too much off pre-season, but we hadn't been at our free-flowing best, and we'd been off the back of a couple of what people think are poor results. Well, they are poor results. Losing any time's a poor result. So we were off the back of those types of fixtures, those types of games, and then you add into the mix a few injuries and a few players not back who we expected to be back, and in true Halifax fashion, we're starting the season with our backs against the wall. So nothing new there. We're familiar with a bit of that, but as is often the case, when our backs are against the wall and times are tough, we often surprise people and do well in those moments. So it was good, and then obviously we knew August was going to be a tough start to the season anyway, with the oppositions we had. A long trip to Ebbsfleet was going to wrap it up. We knew it wasn't going to be an easy month, but the lads responded, and I think the staff approached it in the only way they know how, which is in a really thorough, professional manner. And we came out of it relatively pleased, given the challenges we went into it with.
Yeah, and as you say, looking at that August, there were a couple of disappointing results, but performances overall were something to be pleased with.
Yeah, and when you've got Solihull coming to town and an older shot off the back of the seasons they had last season, it was always going to be a challenging opening. But I think even though the results didn't go our way against those two oppositions, I think the performances were decent, especially Solihull. I mean, if you remember, we spent the vast majority of the time in their half and peppered the goal and just weren't able to, a mixture of our inability to find the finishing touch and their outstanding sort of last-ditch defending, and it was some real outstanding moments of last-ditch defending from Solihull in that game was the difference. But on another day, we'd have won that game comfortably.
And of course, obviously in August as well, we touched on it a little bit at the time, but we lost Kane Thompson-Somers. That was a disappointing move.
Yeah, I mean, it's always something we have to face at this club. We've got a lot of very exciting young players, and if they have a run of games and they hit a run of form, they're going to attract attention because we've shown over the last 2 or 3 years that we can really sort of pick out a player that others have overlooked, and we've got the ability within the coaching team and indeed the club as a whole to give these lads the platform and the patience and the time and the coaching to kick on. It's always interesting, really, seeing a lot of the reaction early doors can be sometimes a bit critical of the younger lads coming in and what have you, but we always know when we've got one who can kick on, and I think we've got a few this season who in the coming years will progress up the levels. But with Kane in particular, we felt that this season was going to be his season. We did the work we expected to do with him last season. We saw at times some really outstanding performances, and then some, pretty mediocre performances from him, if the truth be known. But we knew over the period of last season we'd get the work into him, and that he would learn the level, and he would grow throughout the season. And we were hopeful that he would provide the sort of bedrock of the midfield this season. And these are the situations we're going to find ourselves in over and over again, where teams really come and test our mettle. We're not a club who need to sell, because the chairman does run such a tight ship. He runs it well. He keeps it on the even keel financially. That we're not in a position where we need to sell, but there are times when other clubs, bigger clubs at higher levels, are going to be able to come in and really challenge us and make bids that become very, very difficult to refuse. And I think that was the case with Kane, really, given he did have another year on his contract plus an option after that. It would have to be a really positive offer to be able to turn our heads and turn Kane's head, which is another consideration when offers come in for players. So disappointing to lose him from a football perspective. But, we are a club who develop players and help them provide a foundation to progress from. Kane did that. There'll be others who do it, and there have been plenty before him who have done it through Halifax Town.
And of course, looking at the results we picked up in September, overall a very positive month that helped us climb the table.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we started to get some players back at that point, and then what you've got to remember is, although you're getting the likes of Flo Hotty, Max Wright, Ryan Galvin, these players back available for you, it was almost like their pre-season to some degree, because they're still building up the fitness and the match sharpness, because they're a number of weeks behind the others. So we can't judge them too much on performances at that stage. But I think the team started to show an ability to put some really positive performances in. We went to a more attacking shape. And we started to create more scoring opportunities, and we started to score more goals and inevitably pick up more points. So September was positive for us. I felt for the lads. Obviously, I had my little turn from a health perspective, and I was sort of supporting from afar for a period in September. And the one moment where I did really feel for him was the away game at Braintree, which a bit of a nothing game, really. It was probably your typical National League stalemate, and should have probably ended up 0-0. But you could see in the lads, as I'm watching it, there was a level of fatigue growing throughout the second half, off the back of an awful long trip on the Saturday to Maidenhead, and travelling down to Braintree on the day, and having to get themselves there off the back of that long trip to Maidenhead and back. It was tough, and you can see it when you know the lads as well as I do. I saw the drop off early in the second half, and as the half progressed, it really became a case of trying to see the game out. And unfortunately, we weren't able to. A penalty decision that I would say, there was clear contact and there was a little nudge in the box, but you see hundreds of those every weekend, and penalties aren't given. So I thought we were a little bit unfairly dealt with. You've seen them given, but more often than not, you've seen them not given. That was the only sort of blot on the copybook, really. And I thought, especially with the challenges thrown up for the staff and the players with my absence, they acquitted themselves fantastically well across September.
And of course, obviously, October, bit of a mixed month. Obviously, you had the great comeback win against Tamworth, but then that was followed up with the FA Cup disappointment.
Yeah, FA Cup was a big one. That was, against we were all actually very, expectant going into that. We wanted the big tie. We wanted the. For this stage of the competition, Oldham away is probably the toughest you can get, really, or at that stage, I should say. So we were looking forward to that. We were expectant. We believed we had enough to beat them. We thought we'd acquitted ourselves well against them in the league game in September. And just very, very disappointing. I think you said to me after the game, Luke, everything that could go wrong did go wrong first half, and you were right. We weren't at our best. Oldham were the better team, but they certainly weren't four goals better than us in that half. A couple of bits of bad luck or just uncharacteristic errors that you wouldn't normally expect, and we find ourselves with a real tough challenge second half. But again, if I'm gonna give the lads anything out of that game, it'd be the way they responded. We've seen teams in the past who struggle like we did. We really struggled through the first half, and often in the second half they just go into protection mode and try and avoid really getting a real hiding. But our lads came out on the front foot, tried to go after the tie, tried to prove themselves. We were on the front foot. We were the aggressors, if you like, in that second half, and it was just too much really for us to overturn, given the way the first half had gone. But October as a whole, some real positives. I think the performances, other than the FA Cup first half, I think the performances have been really positive. All the sort of stats that we look at will back us up. You make your judgments on what you see with your eye, but the game's an emotional game. So when we come away from them, we re-watch them and we go through the stats just to sort of really confirm that we're right in our opinions, and we're sure we're seeing what we believe we're seeing. So and we're positive about the direction of travel for the team. We think the performances are getting better and better, and we're moving in the right direction. But clearly we've got to get a consistency in terms of our results now. It's no good being a good team, an attractive team to watch who don't win games. We need to be the whole package.
Yeah, and you mentioned the performances there being up to what we'd expect, and certainly we saw that in the last two games. But as you say, the results weren't quite there, and the disappointment with York especially was losing it so late on.
Well, yeah, both games really, because Rochdale we were in the ascendancy. When we pull it back to 1-1, and that second half performance was better from Rochdale. We'd controlled the first half and they got better, but it was still an even game second half, and we should have at least got a draw. And I think really it wouldn't be unrealistic to say that we should have won it. I know there was some murmurings around that, we would, or we did run out of steam. That's not the case. We're a fit bunch this season. We're as fit as any team in the division, and we've got the ability to play a real high intensity. But when we see the Rochdale performance, the York performance, how good we've been over two games against two very good teams, we'll expect to be right up there. Then we've got to be encouraged. But when we analyse oppositions, we analyse the way they play, the style of play, the personnel, but we look for traits. So we really look for traits in when and how they score, when and how they concede, traits in terms of the patterns of play and the defensive structure, how they press, how they drop off. All of these things we look for, and we've got to look at ourselves in the same respect. So over the last two games, albeit I think the performances have been very good, I think the level of fitness is outstanding, and we're able to go for 90-95 minutes to a high level. What we've got to be is better in terms of our organisation around set pieces, around our structure, and as we make substitutions and players get fatigued who have been on since the start, we need to be able to fix problems as they come up. So that's a real focus for us at the moment, and something that we know we can put right. And I'll be interested to see how much progress we've made by the time Woking comes round.
Yeah, looking ahead to that game, obviously you got a rare weekend without a game to be played. What can you tell us looking ahead to Woking?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been good. It's a funny sort of paradox, really, because Woking have got a couple of games before they play us, and obviously we've got none. So sometimes you want to be the team who's got you're in a groove and you're moving and you're playing regularly and you're rolling out performances, and sometimes you'd prefer to be the team that had the rest, and no doubt, whoever wins that game will feel that they were in the better position. So for us, the benefit of not playing is that we can get some work into those traits that I've just talked about, the things that are becoming clear that we need to fix, so we can get some really solid work into one or two traits that we believe need to be resolved. This week's been a fantastic week's training, and it's brought a real togetherness amongst the group and shown a real increase in our ability to get through certain moments of the game. Of course, it's easy doing it in training, and we've got to apply it in games, but having this week where we can really ramp the training up and make it a little bit more intense than we would have been able to had we had a game this weekend has been fantastic. Of course, we've got to maintain that intensity and take it into the game next Saturday, which is sometimes difficult when you've had a blank weekend preceding it. But no, it's been a fantastic preparation for us so far, and we believe that going into next week, the run up to the Woking game, we've got a fantastic bedrock to go from that will give us a chance to do some more detailed tactical work to try and prepare us for Woking. But some of those traits we've really made some progress on.
And just looking beyond Woking for a minute, obviously back in action in the National League Cup, not in the not too distant future against Middlesbrough under 21s. Will that be an opportunity for sort of certain players to get more minutes, or will it be more or less a full strength squad, do you reckon?
Well, it is full strength for sure. I mean, I think one of the things we can say this season over previous is I think we've got a little bit more strength in depth, I would say. Still very, very young. But you look at the likes of Tom Pugh, who's not been fortunate enough yet to get a real run of games under his belt. He's an experienced young player. He's got a good number of games under his belt at League Two and National League level. So we've got a fair few players who are chomping at the bit to get those minutes in the legs, and it's a great opportunity for us, because although some players haven't had as much minutes as others so far this season, this cup competition gives us a chance to keep them fit and sharp, because we know they're going to. Recent seasons tell us that we're going to need the whole squad. They're going to need to be ready, and when they are ready, they need to be able to take the chance, because we aren't a team who regularly go out and sign new players and sign rafts of new lads and have loads of loans. We're a team who recruit players who we believe can help us and can move us forward, and that's the case with this current squad, maybe over and above recent seasons in terms of the depth. So yeah, it's a great competition for us to be able to compete in. And listen, we want to win it. I don't want people to think it's just a good opportunity for us to get some friendly matches in. We want to do everything we can to try and win the competition. It's a competition worth winning. Hopefully when we're in the Football League and we're competing in the EFL Trophy, it's a very similar type of competition, and we would enter that in a serious nature, wanting to win it. And there's no difference with this one. There does have to be a balance, because players who've played every minute of every other game, maybe an Adam Senior or a Will Smith, might not figure quite as much in this competition, but it's still a competition we're going to go out to try and win as many games as we can in, and if that takes us all the way, then we'll be delighted.
And just looking at the squad, obviously Owen Bray was signed under a short-term contract. We understand he's been offered a new deal. Do you have any update on that?
Not really, no. There were some negotiations. It's been quite a long process, really. I guess partly with my sort of absence, then the workload has backed up a little bit at the sort of last week of September when I was ill, and so we've been getting through some other stuff. So that has been something that's kind of maybe been going along in the background during that time. We're really keen to keep Owen. We think he fits the model, he fits the bill. He's a Yorkshire lad. He's exciting player, one who we think he's very adaptable. He can play a number of positions, but we think he can really contribute not only in the future but immediately. I think people have seen the impact he can have in games, whether starting or coming off the bench. So he's somebody we'd really like to keep. He's got, like I say, there's an offer on the table, but he's got to make the decision as to whether or not that suits him, and he thinks that Halifax Town is the right club for him to progress his career in, and we really hope so. I think he's a decent lad, and I think he's settled in well. I think he's happy, so hopefully we'll be able to move it forward.
Of course, another lad, obviously Scott High, on loan from Huddersfield Town. I believe his loan's due to expire shortly. Are you confident of getting that extended?
Yeah, again, another one who we'd like to. Scott has obviously come in and played a good number of games, and we know what a good player he is. Good passer of the ball, influenced his games, obviously scored a worldie for us, which was fantastic timing and type of goal. So he's a lad that we enjoy working with, and another Yorkshire lad fits the bill, doesn't it? Young local players who really want to come in and build a career, starting with Halifax Town. So we'd love to keep him around it if we can. But yeah, that again, it will take a little bit of work with ourselves, Scott, and of course Huddersfield to make that happen.
Of course, obviously we've got a few players out on loan currently at the minute. Obviously Aaron Cosgrave, Festus Arthur, Ted Lavelle, Jamil Tukwa and Justin Iwobi. How are they all doing?
Really well. It's good to report. Jamil and Ted obviously at the same club, and they've been around whilst there's been a real good turnaround in form with BPA. I know some of that started before they arrived there, but they certainly contributed to it since their arrival. And fantastic for young players like that to be getting minutes in a really well run team. So it's fantastic for them that they're getting that experience and building it up, and hopefully it will see them develop and progress further. For Aaron Cosgrave, I know he scored recently on Saturday for Ebbsfleet, and he's a lad who wants to be a regular starter. He's not at Halifax Town to just build up his experience and his exposure to the league. He wants to be in it, playing week in, week out. So in getting this opportunity to build up that match sharpness, get a run of games and hopefully get a run of goals, will give him a significant chance of contributing more to our campaign and to our cause. So it's great to see that he's got off to such a flying start. And not dissimilar with Festus as well, another lad who's at a stage of his career where he needs to be playing and to build up that consistency. He's obviously had bits of games with us, bounce games, and the Newcastle game, but to build up that consistency, that match sharpness, he needed to just go and get some minutes, and Southport were very happy to have him back after what he did for them last season. So it's a really good position to be in. Getting these lads in Jamil and Ted's cases, getting them very, very important time that will contribute to the development and help to turn them into the footballers that we believe they can be. In the case of Festus and Aaron, getting them the minutes that can get them the sharpness and get them the consistency they need to be able to contribute to the season that we want to have. And of course, we've got Justin out getting experience at Mickleover, so rewarding situation all round.
And finally, you won't necessarily be able to say too much on this, but do we have any further incomings or departures in the pipeline at the moment?
No, not really, mate. I'd be lying if I said there was anything imminent. We're constantly looking. I mean, this weekend, me and Coops will be out at games. Coops will be out keeping an eye on Ted and Jamil on their performances out on loan. I'll be taking in a game to have a look at a couple of players. We've got Gareth McClelland, and he's got a small army of scouts who he has out and about every week, taking in games from under 21 level through to NPL level, National League North and South, National League into League 2 and League 1. So we're always gathering intel and looking for players and building up our database of information on who's available and how well players are performing, who fit our criteria and our model. So we'll continue to do that, and as and when opportunities arise, I should say, we'll hopefully be in a good place to take advantage of them. But no, there's nothing imminent with anyone coming in or going out, Luke.
Thank you for your time.
No, it's a pleasure. Good to hear you, pal.